now listening to The Bradshaw Boys, a podcast where three relatively grown men binge the iconic HBO series Sex and the City. So dust off those DVDs and grab yourself a white wine or even a Cosmopolitan and settle in. Take it away, boys.
Welcome to The Bradshaw Boys, a podcast where three guys watch their way through Sex and the City for the first time ever, mostly. I'm Cory Cavin.
I'm Kevin James Doyle.
My name is Jon Sieber.
And we are delighted today to be with one of our favorites from the show. Cannot believe we're sitting here with him. Stanford Blatch himself. Ladies and gentlemen, Willie Garson.
Yes.
Willie, thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure. What a delight. And people who actually don't talk crap about the show and like the show.
Oh, man.
You know, we get that like all the time, that there's so many people that are like, so you guys actually like it? And they're like, we thought this was a podcast to roast it, and that I was thinking about it today. I mean, we've talked about this like on the show before, but it has become a thing that like we all obviously really like, but it has also become kind of like a social theory for like talking about culture and the world and stuff like that amongst the three of us. Completely.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys know this, like 90% of the people who say they can't stand it either only saw an episode and made a decision before they watched that episode that they hated it, or they've never seen it at all.
Totally.
And, and all of a sudden their next door neighbor was, wearing stiletto heels and a glitter, bikini, and was really into it. So they hate her, so they hate the show.
Yeah.
I mean, but really, I was telling you guys before we started, I was in a hotel room with my son who hasn't watched a lot of it. Now he's old. So we were flipping channels and there was a good episode on, and I haven't watched it in like 20 years, that episode. And then we, it's E! Channel, so it's on 24 hours a day. So then we watched like three more, and it was like, wow, it's really funny. It's really funny.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it is so legitimately funny, and so like just the picture I posted today of you and Sarah Jessica Parker. You're laughing at something, and there's a few comments in the Instagram of people being like, you could tell that your friendship. You were laughing as actors. I think it wasn't during it was like between scenes or something, but all the dynamic of all the characters and their interactions and the energy still comes through like 20 years later. Like, I think that it is so dynamic. The believability of like the friendships and the banter and the jokes. Like, I think that
for us specifically, like for Sarah Jessica and I specifically, that was like very important. She didn't know, I'm sure if you've read about the show, you might know this. She didn't know that I was up for the role. I didn't know that she was playing the role. And then I heard that she might be up for it. And I came, it was right after my network test at HBO. I heard in the lobby, other women were there talking about who's going to maybe play Carrie. And I left the audition and I called Sarah. And I said, what is this thing, Sex and the City? Are you doing it? And she said, I might. I don't know. She goes, are you doing it? I said, I think so. I'm the only one. I was the only one there to test for Stanford.
Wow.
And she said, I don't know. I mean, when you do television shows, people hate you and they write terrible things about you, and they just love you're a target. She goes, but I think I'll do it. So I like to tell people that I convinced her to do it, which is not true. But I always do believe that our friendship showed up on the screen. Like at the end of scene, she would reach over and like slap my bald head. She would be doing that with some actor who happened to be cast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that shot that you talk about, that you put up today, Sarah's, right before we'd shoot anything, Sarah Jessica would say to me, tell me a joke.
Wow.
So you tell the joke, they shout action, and we go, because we're in it.
Yeah.
And that's our friendship. That's not some junkie actor who was hired.
Yeah.
That's like us hanging out. And, we always say if either of us wasn't on it, we'd be there all the time hanging out with our friend on set in New York. So So it was like a double bonus.
How
That's
special
great.
is that's so special that you had a friend and then you got to be in a show with them. Like that is such like a dream.
I happened to get on a show with one of my best friends. So that
Wow.
was like amazing. It by chance, it happened to me again on White Collar.
Mm.
It's just, that's what happens when you're elderly.
Were you friends with Matthew Bomer or who?
No, I'd never met Matt. I was very good friends with Tim DeKay.
Okay. Okay.
Well, the thing you said though, that when you just said that's what happens when you're elderly, I mean, but there is a thing though that seems to be true even through Sex and the City, and that a lot of you are still working, that the longer you stick around in industry like this, the more you start to run across people, probably like the more friends you make, but also the more you start seeing the same people. And that seems to be the case with you and Sarah Jessica. When was the first time that you met her and came across working with her? Was there an earlier thing you worked on together?
No, we never worked together before. We met in 1986. We were set up as a dinner date to sit next to each other at a dinner party.
Okay.
I became rapidly much more interested than she was in me. But we became really tight friends, and she lived in Los Angeles at the time. So
Okay.
we were kind of inseparable for a few years. And then she moved back to New York.
Wow.
And, we still, our friendship is intact. So
Yeah.
we still talk, close to every day.
Really?
Yeah, we're going on 30 years.
That is
Wow.
wild. How has that changed with technology? Did it start that you guys would actually call each other every couple of days and then you would text, and now it's...
I'll tell you the best. Right at the beginning of, this is so corny, right at the beginning of pagers, there was something called Skynet.
Yes.
Skynet.
I remember commercials for that.
It was like this, this size too, a rectangular pager, and you flip the top open, and you could write. It had a keyboard, and you could write and send it. The only problem is you could only send it to other people who had Skynet.
That is great.
For both Sarah Jessica and I, that was like two people, and she was one of them. So we would talk. So we kind of beat the game with the technology. We were right on it. The greatest story is my mother was like a real Luddite, technologically just not there at all. And 9/11 happened, and my mother lived downtown, and I'm in LA freaking out, and my brother is in New Jersey, and I'm literally saying like, "Oh, just drive in and get her." And he's like, "You don't understand.
Oh my
It's not
gosh.
like you drive into Lower Manhattan right now."
Yeah.
So we didn't hear from her for 3 days. And
Wow.
Sarah Jessica went to my mother's building and walked up 13 flights of stairs
Oh my gosh.
What?
and texted me on that stupid ass Skynet pager. Because cell phones weren't working. Not that my mother had one, but cell phones weren't working. Nothing was working. And she texted me on my Skynet pager, "I'm sitting here having coffee with your mother. Everything's fine."
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
So thank God for the Skynet pager.
Yeah,
That's
for
bad.
Our
That's wild.
sponsor for this podcast tonight, Skynet Pagers. Thank you so much for.
But I saw Sarah Jessica as Annie when I was 13. When we were both 13. Yeah.
That's wild.
Since we're, what did you filmed like a pretty iconic White Collar set in LA, correct?
New York.
Oh, it is. Oh, so you're on
Yeah.
two.
Yeah.
You're on two like epic New York shows.
And
What's
and,
it?
and shot. I literally thought that there's nothing possible that we could possibly shoot in New York
Yeah.
after Sex and the City, and we shot everything else. We shot on White Collar, and it was completely different, and it looked different. Sex and the City was very shot like from here, because you had the beautiful faces. Women, it's good to shoot also a downward angle, and you have the outfit and the shoes and all of that. White Collar was shot up.
Interesting.
Okay.
The building, the architecture, all of that. That was the star. So New York was a star. New York was the star of Sex and the City in emotionally.
Yeah.
Interesting.
In White Collar, New York was a star physically.
That's kind of funny because if you watch, I don't know if you watch Succession, but Succession is like, it's always these like imposing building shots. And you're right. In Sex and the City, there's these like straight on, you guys are walking in the West Village, like shots of like your outfits and stuff, very like more close up stuff.
It's interesting, like Succession. I love Succession, but to me, it looks like it's shot in Toronto. Like,
Yeah,
I don't feel New York.
Yeah. You just feel evil. You just feel the evil of capitalism.
Maybe it's just a much wealthier New York than
Well, that's true though.
I invited to.
Well, so this is a question for you as someone who had shot, because I know I know from doing some research, and also just we were talking earlier about how you've been in so many things, and you were on NYPD Blue, which was that shot in New York?
No, that was shot in Los Angeles.
Okay.
with the New York street on the Fox lot, and then Dennis Franz and Jimmy and sometimes Nick Turturro would go to New York like every 2 or 3 months and just shoot a couple of days of like running down streets with guns or whatever. So they had it to cut.
Okay. Well, because you were saying, you know, when you watch Succession that it feels like a different New York than what you've known, or maybe it's a wealthier one or something like that. Did Sex and the City, did it remind you of New York? And did it feel like you knew New York when you were doing it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I remember it early on. Why do I think maybe Bradley Cooper's episode? It was early on. And I remember we were shooting we shot a lot of places where we would be, like where we would go. I remember we were shooting at the Beauty Bar.
Oh yeah,
on 14th Street,
still there.
And it was like we had just been to the Beauty Bar like a few nights before, not knowing that we were going there to shoot. And at the beginning, especially, I mean, I can't speak for Sarah, but for me, when we were shooting in like a club or a nightclub scene, whatever, you know, first of all, we were all smoking like chimneys. Until they told us that we shouldn't do that anymore, so we didn't do that. And then I was drinking. Like if we were at a nightclub and they were drinking, I would be drinking.
Yeah,
and that was really fun because no one was watching the show.
Wow.
Then by the second season, forget it. All the fun stuff.
So when did you know that this was going to be something larger than what you were doing for the first season? Was there a moment that it clicked?
My story is somewhat well documented, but like I got 2 pilots on the same day. I took the other show.
Oh.
And then Sex and the City called and said, well, they called Fox, which was the network for the other show. And they called and said, well, will you let him guest on the pilot instead of being a regular? So I shot the pilot for the other show. I shot the pilot for Sex and the City. And then the other show got picked up. And Sarah was on Broadway. So Sarah was doing Once Upon a Mattress on Broadway for a year. So the show wasn't even going to start shooting episodes for another year. So the other show got picked up. It's called Ask Harriet. We shot 13 episodes. They aired 5 and they canceled it. And we called up Sex and the City and said, hey, we might have made a mistake. Like, can we come back? And they said, well, in retooling the show, because they did, we feel that this is a recurring character instead of a regular. We could take him back as a regular, but we won't pay him very much, and he's just going to be sitting around a lot. So we took the contract, and it ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me because I could work elsewhere. They were very generous. They overpaid me, and everyone loved the character so much that Chris Note's famous quote is, I don't want to be in a scene with that fucking Garson. That was one. And I think Michael Patrick King would say a little bit of Stanford It goes a really long way. So like literally I could be in an episode and have like one line, and then they'd ask people what the episode about. Like, oh, it's the one where Stanford blah blah blah. It's like okay, well, I was really basically an extra in that episode, but it was just like a very popular character that stuck out.
Well, I think also like we're going on this journey watching it for the first time, so it's funny just like hearing just all the fans from around the world always talking to us, and so many people mention how like the show's about friendship. And I think that there's obviously the four girls and there's the city, but it is, even watching it, people are so drawn to like, you have a special friendship with Carrie. And I think, I don't know. I think people see a lot of their own friendships in your friendship with Carrie, of like, anytime you're in an episode, you see that thing at the beginning that's like Willie Garson. You're like, fuck yeah. Like it's, and,
well, it's funny. It's a real testament to the writers too, to create like kind of, full people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, listen, every television show starts the same way. Every character is a complete stereotype. Mm-hmm. That's how shows start. Mm-hmm. This is the smart one. This is the slutty one. This is this is the sweet one. That's the gay guy, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then the longer you go, if you're blessed enough to go for a while, they become full people. Mm. And that happened very quickly because we're telling such human stories that we find out so much information. And that if you watch very carefully, like the first 2 seasons, all that pipe, it's called, all that story pipe is to quickly develop the more that we can know about these people. Then once you have that, any one of them can interact with any other at any time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's how it's done. So we learn about, in Stanford's case, we learn about the rich grandmother. We learn that he has a family. We learn that what he does for a living because he's got a client who's a model, with a big bulge. Like that, so like we learn as much as we can quickly. This show, much more than other shows, happened very quick, where they give us all the information about the people.
And the Stanford character is also, there's a lot of emotions that occur with him, with his dating life, and when he's working through the classified sections. It's not just, he's not just the token gay character. You actually are exploring a lot of these human things about him, and I think that really makes him such a genuine,
it's a real
legit
testament
character.
To the writers. I mean, I didn't, how do I say this without getting anyone in trouble? I didn't audition as a flamboyant character.
Mm-hmm.
When we got to shoot the pilot, I was kind of pushed to be more flamboyant.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the word was gayer. So, and I felt very uncomfortable because I didn't want to offend anyone in the community. Mm-hmm. And I felt like it was going to be stereotypical. But the writers, because they're so brilliant, and the directors, and Michael Patrick King and Darren, they made sure that this is not offensive because it's a real person.
Yeah.
Giving him his heartache, what makes him laugh, what makes him cry, what does he love, who does he care about? That makes a real person rather than a cliche.
Yeah,
that's so true.
I think with the like the bright colors, and it's like, I don't know, there's lots of gay best friend characters, but I think that's where I haven't seen on that many television shows the classified ads where you show up and I think it says Ed Harris type, right?
Oh, well, he said no. That's in the models episode where I meet Anthony. He said,
okay.
You said he looked like Ed Harris. How about Ed? I have no hair. And he hates me. No, the classified section is my friend Jack Merrill played the role, and I meet him on the street.
Yes,
and he walks up to you.
I walk up, and he literally says, he looks me up and down. And he goes, "I'd rather fuck a wall." And walks away. And it's like, if your heart is not breaking
Yeah.
Stanford at that moment. I mean, that's an amazing thing.
Well, and so many storylines that involve like classified data that could be played for cheap comedy so easily of just like, no thanks.
Rick 9+.
Yeah. But yeah, I think there's like it's the writing and then how you perform it and act in it. There's something about Stanford that people are just drawn to and is certainly not a stereotype. And for a show that sometimes we interview lots of people on the show and some people are like, love to bring up the parts that haven't aged perfectly. I don't think Stanford's ever come up as something that has done anything but like age well. And I think that's
interesting. I mean, the only thing that has not aged well is that, to be honest, I probably wouldn't even audition for it now. It's inappropriate for me to audition for it.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that's different. But in terms of the reality is, and this, I don't think I'm going out on a limb by saying this, but I should be able to audition for it because we should get past that gender or sexuality has anything to do with anything. We should get to the humanity, and that's what I'm playing. I'm just playing a human being who happens to be gay. So I hope we get past this. Just as gay men are obviously playing straight people all the time, and so it was interesting. But I do have to say, I was only partially responsible for creating this character. The character was really created by our costume designer, Pat Field.
Really? Because of the fashion?
Well, Pat Field got copious notes and input on wardrobe and character development for every character on the show, except for Stanford. Stanford, Pat read the script and said, "This one's mine. This is my playground." And she never got a note, a direction, a thought, anything from anyone. She just created. And when I talk about 6-hour wardrobe sessions, because every designer on the planet wanted to be on Stanford.
That's amazing.
They knew it was Pat's baby, and they knew that it would be not only talked about but extremely featured. I mean, some of them we even had to write lines about. I think, what's the episode where she finds another gay friend and I walk up to them on the street, I'm wearing a bright green suit. And we literally had to add the couplet. I actually go, "I'm green with envy," and Sarah has to look at the suit and go, "You certainly are." And that was only because I was wearing that suit that day. So we had to point to it, it was just so ridiculous.
Do you have a particular outfit that was your favorite that sticks out the most?
It's so hard. I mean, it's none of it is really what Willie Garson would wear.
Sure.
So generally the concept was, if it looked good on me and maybe not look like Jabba the Hutt, and if it fit great and fit the story, and so that would be great. And then if I liked the outfit enough to wear it, we would get the designer to give me something that I would wear in my life. So I will say, and we use them a lot, this English designer, Oswald Boateng, his suits, just his cut was exactly my body. It was exactly right for my body. And so his suits fit me really well. Those were beautiful.
That's so interesting because we talk a lot. Well, first of all, we talk a lot about how being three straight dudes who none of us work in fashion, probably clear from you seeing us through this Zoom. And, but that's the thing we miss the most. Not miss in terms of we missed it, but the thing that just blows right by us is the fashion. But it's interesting because we talk to so many female fans of the show, and we've talked to Sarah Jessica and Kristen, but it's interesting to hear a male character talk about being involved in the fashion and you getting to interact with designers of the time. And that whole show, from male characters to female characters to anyone, it didn't miss anyone on fashion.
Well, it's interesting because I was like the audience when I came to the show. So I went to New York. It was very exciting. I went to New York to shoot the pilot, and I had my day with Pat Field. And I was, I'm a suburban kid from central New Jersey. This world is not my world, this high fashion world. And they go, I knew right away because they go, oh, well, you're going to meet with Pat at her atelier. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And I go to Pat's atelier, which is something that is in France, where you meet with your designer. And it was on 8th Street near Pat's store. And I knew that Pat was a very famous designer. And I walked in, and it was beautiful Oriental rugs on the floor and racks of like the most beautiful clothing you've ever seen, and a bottle of champagne on ice and a carton of cigarettes. And I thought, okay, game on. Like, if this is like something you see in a movie, like that, that this is real. This is like real life, and it was.
That's amazing.
I just want to tell you one more thing about Pat. 10, 15 years after the fact, I think it was even on the second movie, Pat came in, we're putting together an outfit, and she goes, I'll be right back. And she runs out and comes back in about 20 minutes, and she has a pair of cufflinks. And she goes, I got these for you 12 years ago. They're perfect for this outfit.
Oh my gosh.
I thought, okay, that's fucking crazy. That's crazy.
Wow.
So that's the level of thought she put into it.
What a legend.
And yeah, I that's cool that you had that relationship with her. We're clearly aware that it's like Stanford has like bold fashion choices, and like I think since that's the clothes where I don't know, the men's fashion to us always stands out more. We talk about it more because we are guys. But that's cool that there was so much thought put into it on her end. We want to have
also
there's no fashion for the men on the show. I mean,
yes.
This is the thing. People call. I gave her the award, the Fashion Designer of the Year award, and I presented her with the award as fancy dinner, and everyone was there. Tommy Hilfiger, everyone was there, and I said in my speech, like, people think she's such a genius because it's so wacky, and Sarah's wacky with this thing on her head, and look what Kim's wearing today, whatever. But people forget she also dressed every cop. Every deli owner, I mean, she really is a genius.
Yeah. They're running like full on TV wardrobe production, plus all the like insane outfits that are happening.
Steve's basketball shorts.
Yeah, all those Puma tanks. You got to run all those too. I mean, come on, seriously.
That's like 2-3 trips to TJ Maxx.
Oh my gosh, we've had a field day talking about just like. We always talk about like how Aiden just was like straight off of the second Pearl Jam tour, like as a roadie at Lollapalooza, and like with his Soundgarden tie-dyed shirt.
It's definitely very Seattle influenced, I would say.
Totally.
Can you tell us what it was? I mean, you said a little bit about you were the only one in the room, but what was the audition process like when you first read for it?
It's so funny. I went to an audition, just like any, during, it used to be more so, it's not so much any now, but pilot season is like time of year, like January to April, where all the pilots are being cast, and there used to be a lot of them, and you'd go and go and go until you got one. And so this was another pilot audition. I read it. I didn't really get it. So I wasn't sure what it meant. And I also didn't understand what HBO was at the time.
Wow.
They had that football show with O.J. Simpson, like First and 10 or something. I didn't understand. And they had boxing matches.
Boxing, yeah. I remember the boxing matches.
I didn't know what it was. But anyway, it was just another audition at pilot season. And I went a very small room, like a broom closet, basically, at Warner Brothers. And Russell Gray, the casting director, and Darren Star were there. And I walked in, I did it, I read it. Again, not flamboyant at all.
Yeah.
Like I just read it as a guy who happened to be gay. And I went to leave, and So I turned and I was at the door, opening the door, and Darren said, "Willie, hold on a second." And I turned and go, "What?" He goes, "That's a great suit." And I said, "Thank you."
Okay.
And I left. And then that was it. And then they called and said they wanted to make a test deal. I'm like, based on that? I'm like, well, I said to my agent, I'll tell you this, I know what suit I'm wearing. Definitely wearing the same suit. And so normally you make a test deal and go audition at the studio. And then when you get past that, then you go to the network. But this was the same. HBO was the studio and the network. So we made the test deal. And I went, and there were all these women at the big fancy, tower in Century City in Los Angeles. And there's all these women for all the other parts are sitting in the lobby. And so I'm just listening to them to hear more about what was going on. This was in the morning, and my audition for Ask Harriet was at 4:00 in the afternoon.
Wow.
So I went in. I was the only one there for Stanford, which ends up meaning nothing, actually, now that I think about it, because none of the women there got any of the parts.
Wow.
Yeah.
They were willing, I'm sure they were willing to keep moving forward, and looking for more people. But by noon, I think we got the call that I got it. And they said, well, we're going to have to wait because he has another audition. And the other show was for Fox, which was a real network. And it was slightly more money. And I thought, well, it was truly like the true second lead. I thought, you know what? If I get that one, I'm going to do that one first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did. So.
Yeah, it's wild. You've just had such an insane career. Like you've been in I guess, I don't know if this is too general, but what is it like to you're just like a go-to comedic actor. You've been in fucking like every big sitcom ever, like as a doctor, as this, like, what's it like? We've never talked to someone who's been in 75 different sitcoms,
Well, it's interesting. It's not just sitcoms, my friend.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
But I'm actually, so someone convinced me, and this is not a plug because I don't think anyone's ever going to read it, but as kind of an old-fashioned style character actor, I do like to work all the time, and I also do like every time to be different. That said, so I'm writing a book right now, and it just starts because I have the longest IMDb that anyone knows of.
Yeah.
So I literally started in 1985, entry number 1, and I just write whatever I need to say about that thing. Some of them I literally write, if you held a gun to my head, I could not tell you what this is. So literally, some of them are like that, but it just goes on, and it's just kind of a journey to keep working. It's funny what you just said, because when I was auditioning for White Collar, there was someone at NBC Universal who didn't want me. And a big executive at NBC Universal, apparently, and I know this from a number of people, stood up in the room and said, listen, we don't really know these other people that well, and Willie Garson is like a warm blanket for the audience. Let's give them that blanket.
That's amazing.
That's such a compliment.
That's such a compliment, though.
It's a compliment as long as it's not a wet blanket.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like
that book is incredibly interesting sounding.
Yeah.
Keep us updated as to
I'm trying to make it very readable, and I'm also trying very hard not to talk shit.
Sure.
That's not the point of the book.
Yeah. Well,
I tell stories, but I don't go there but I hint that it might have gone there.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, we'll toss that on the Bradshaw Boys book club, and when it comes out, you need to let us know.
I'm literally up to 1997, and I'm past page 100 already.
Wow,
that's amazing.
That's incredible.
It might be like War and Peace. Like I have no idea.
One of my favorite books when I got into acting when I was in high school it's an encyclopedia of character actors called Who the Hell Is That Guy?
Oh, that's great.
And it's at my apartment in New York. So when I get back, I'll see if you're in it. But it's like all these people that you see and everything. And that's always what I was drawn to. There's like the people that became big stars like Philip Seymour Hoffman and John C. Reilly. And then there's but any character, I would always zone in. I'd be like,
Willie Garson. Yeah.
But just any character actor that works like you do. I think that book will do really well and will be inspiring too.
Okay, well, I'll spill the beans.
Okay.
When your parents are out when you're a kid, so you of course route through everything in the house. Like you're looking in your dad's nightstand, you're looking in the change drawer, like you find everything. My father in his nightstand had a sexy book, which literally could not have been less sexy. And the book was called. I'm not making any of this up. The book is called My First 500. And it's written like I'm writing my book. It's literally number 32 through 37 was a basketball team that I met in the Denver area. And then she describes like whatever happened. And it's like the book is completely asexual as far as I'm concerned. But that's what I based my idea for my book on.
That's amazing. That's like a Sex in the City. Funny. That's like a Sex in the City episode that like Carrie meets someone that has a book like that.
Someone
and then
finds
they go
Samantha's
through that whole
first
thing.
500.
Yeah, they're writing down like, okay, that's 371.
Yeah, they're like the entire catering staff at my sister's wedding.
By the way, I went online to buy a copy of My First 500, and like a first edition is like $1,000.
Wow!
I found a paperback copy, no stains. That was like $60 or something. So I have it. I bought a copy and I own a copy.
That's great. Kevin and I were looking last night at just the different, because you mentioned you were like, it's not just sitcoms. And it's true though, that like Kevin and I were looking through stuff because it was interesting looking through and seeing things that I remember seeing you in before I watched Sex and the City and being like, oh my gosh, that too. Like there's something about Mary, you being the doctor in that. And then The Rock, being in The Rock.
Oh my gosh.
Which is crazy.
So random.
And then like a great one from when I was a kid that I feel like no one's going to remember this, but you were in Quantum Leap, the TV show with Scott Bakula.
Well, people will remember because they have conventions of leapers.
Yeah.
Wow.
By the way, that's what they're called. I'm not like making.
People that have been on the show Quantum Leap are called leapers?
No, the fans.
Oh, the fans. Oh, the fans are.
And I'm a big deal over there. There's a couple shows where I'm a big deal because I'm the only person who did multiple episodes. So like Quantum Leap, I'm the only person who played two different guest stars.
Oh, you played on Quantum Leap. Did you play Lee Harvey Oswald on it?
I did because the producer says, I think he's full of crap, but he says that Lee served with him in Korea.
Oh my gosh.
And that when he saw me in Ruby, was a movie where I played Lee Harvey Oswald, that I was the only one who could play it, even though they had never done it before on the show, repeated someone, but he had to have me. I think he didn't want to have a casting session, is my... The other one is X-Files. I'm the only person who did two X-Files as two totally different guest stars. And then the big one is for those kind of people is Stargate. They love that crap. Like,
okay, amazing. So here's a quiz for you. Who's the only actor on Sex and the City who played two different characters?
Oh,
that's a good question.
That's a great question.
Because I feel it's this guy. Is it a guy?
We're fans of Sex and the City. We're called Sexers, and the Sexers are big fans.
It is a guy.
It's a guy, and he has a famous father. He's Peter Lawford's son. What's his name?
Justin Theroux?
Oh no, not Justin. Well, but that would make sense. There's another guy I feel, but I wouldn't be like an A guest star. It's just like smaller parts.
Peter.
Justin Theroux played two different parts.
He plays a guy who is the mother is the woman, I'm messing all this up, but basically he plays a guy who like has sex issues and his mother is trying to work through them, and their family. And their family like talks way too much about it, and Carrie's dating him. So, and then he also plays another guy a season before where I think Carrie meets up with them at like Union Square when her and Big are kind of like in an off moment. And so it's weird, but then like what happens is when you see him a season later and he's a totally different character, he has shorter hair and he has like wire rimmed glasses. It's like he's like his college self.
You know, he's an interesting case, that Justin Theroux, because I don't get Justin Theroux. I'm in a fog because I never know what he looks like. Because he looks different. He looks different all the time.
Well,
and now he looks nothing like he looked 20 years ago.
That's a great point. I mean, like him in The Leftovers, he looks completely different than he did in Sex and the City.
Completely different.
Yeah,
and
totally different.
I was pretty good friends with him for a minute because he was going out with a dear friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
But then I saw The Leftovers and I'm like, is that Justin? Like, that's so weird because he looks nothing like the person I know.
Yeah, totally.
And I don't mean in like a Mickey Rourke kind of way, like some horrifying surgery.
Oh man, I feel like your book. I feel like you say you're not gonna. I feel like your book's gonna have some real zingers in there.
This book's got to be a roast fest, man. You just gotta throw it out there.
No, I don't do it. I don't do it. I feel my book is getting to be too corny because I was like so afraid of like offending anyone and talking shit.
I think every, like you said, every niche fandom though will be interested in picking up a copy, whether it's the X-Files fans, the Sex and the City fans, the Leapers. Like I think that's going to be a really interesting thing for kind of all those fandoms that
I just don't want it to be 600 pages long.
We do.
We are going to go ahead and ask you. These are fan questions. And the
AWA, Ask Willie Anything.
I got one that I could start with. It's from I have two from Twitter, and I'll give them to you. The first one is from Lindsay Liu, and the second one is from John Legend's Virginal Butt Cheeks. That's the Twitter name of this. So the first
do we really know that about John Legend?
I don't know. That's a great question.
Are they virginal?
Well, that's what you got. We'll you got to answer Chrissy. That in the book. You got to see.
That's the first question. Are they
really virginal?
I have no idea.
So the first question is the hardest you ever laughed on set. Do you remember that?
Ooh. Oh Jesus! I mean,
that's from Lindsay Liu.
No, I don't remember because we just laughed all the time. All I had to do was imitate George Jefferson, and we would laugh for 20 minutes. Like my favorite television show of all time. But I don't. I mean, there were scenes that were very hard to get through. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
We laugh a lot.
And then the second one is, I feel like you might have been asked this before, but do you have any insight on what would have happened in Sex and the City 3?
I don't have a lot of insight. I believe on the broadest strokes, I believe I was going to have a child. That Anthony and I were maybe going to have a child. And that maybe Sarah was not going to end up with Big through either divorce or death or whatever. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But we got close, but not close enough.
She would be a great godmother to your child, I feel like, in the
God.
show.
Wait, what? When you mentioned earlier that Chris Noth said, "Don't put me in a scene with Willie Garson."
Let's go back to that.
Can we? I mean, what is that? Is that real beef or fake beef?
He felt that Stanford took a ton of focus. So his concept was that if it was a compliment for sure, but also he wasn't kidding. That if I was in a scene, certainly in one of those fakakta outfits, that no one is looking at anything else in the scene other than me. So that was like a direction of his. Don't give me any scenes with that fucking Garson.
Oh my gosh!
All right, I took as a compliment.
This is from Tina Huddleston. And you'll have to help me with what this was in, but what was it like to film with Liza Minnelli?
Well, Liza Minnelli marries Anthony and I, Mario Cantone and I, in the second.
What? You get married to Mario Cantone?
You know that we haven't finished it yet.
Shit!
No, but we always say spoilers are off the table.
Spoilers are off the table.
But isn't it crazy that we don't know that, and that's like a spoiler to us?
I
and
literally
it's been 20
just
years?
asked my wife that like 3 days ago. I was like, "Does Stanford end up?" And she was like, "I'm not saying anything."
Wow.
So that is
Oh my
fantastic
gosh.
news.
If
I
there was
didn't
a way
realize
to
that
get
either.
if there's a way to get that spoiler, it's from you. That's amazing.
I mean, here's the thing. It's such a huge thing. What an icon and a legend. It's beyond comprehension. And what could be a gayer wedding than to be married by Liza Minnelli? And so much so that once again, like the green suit, I actually had to add a line. So she marries us and she says, I do and I do. And I go, do you, da-da-da-da-da. And I go, I do, Liza Minnelli. I had to add it because it was so ridiculous.
That's amazing. Oh man,
I can't wait to see that.
Mario Cantone, so good.
It's the second movie. It's in the second movie.
Okay. Let's see. Also this is not a question, but it says from Country Girl. She says, "Love Stanny at Willie Garson. I love the episode where he's quote green with envy in that green suit." So,
Ooh, perfect.
Here's the thing. Like we didn't ad lib on the show. But I would sometimes go to Michael Patrick King with a better blow. Like a blow is like the end of a scene. Mm-hmm. And he would say, he fought me on it at the beginning, but then he would give me one take with that. And after a few months of him being on the show, he came to me and said, I realized in editing, I was using a lot of yours. So have at it. Mm. So then we became more partners, which is how I like to work. Yeah. And it's not how he came in, but how I like to work. And now we're compadres.
So here's this one's really good, especially now that the spoiler happened. But MK Lean said, did you know, and when did you find out in the writing process that you were going to end up with Anthony?
No, I did not know. And I never found out in the writing process.
Did you?
I saw it in the script.
Okay.
Wow.
What was it like when you saw that? Were you like,
I was like, really? Because in the first movie, we happened to be in the same nightclub at midnight on New Year's Eve, and we don't have anyone to kiss. That's the whole sequence is about people at midnight. Mm-hmm. That little montage, and so he comes past me at the nightclub, and obviously we've established that we don't like each other, and I kiss him. And I'm like, so that's where we left it. That's it. Mm-hmm. And then lo and behold, I read the next script. I'm like, what? Like, what happened to the hot one? The Broadway dancer. Sean, or what is his name? Sean? Marcus.
Yeah, Marcus, that was the male escort.
You just the last episode we watched, you just broke up with Marcus because you found out he was an escort.
Yeah, in the classifieds.
Or didn't we get back together at the prom?
You got back together at the prom. That's the last thing we saw.
I forgot about the prom scene. You got back together at the prom.
One of the most beautiful scenes.
Yes. It was. When he cuts in. It was so
beautiful.
Good.
So beautiful.
Oh my God. What's the song? Is it I Know This Much Is True? What's
it's I don't remember.
It's such a great song, and Sarah and I had so much fun dancing at the prom, and it was like
that scene is fantastic.
That's
okay.
Great.
This might require some Willie Garson improv, but how do you think that Stanford and Carrie met? In your actor backstory, how do you think they became friends?
Oh, definitely at a restaurant. Are you kidding? Like waiting for people. Like my guess is, I've thought about this before. Maybe she was waiting for the girls, and I was sitting at the bar. If I want to go deep, like maybe stood up on a date, and she's waiting for the girls, and we start talking, and she says, "Do you have a cigarette?" And I'm like, and then she orders a Cosmopolitan, and I'm like, "Oh my God, that's what I drink." And I just could imagine like that's how it went down.
Oh, that's perfect.
And she's like, "You have a Skynet pager too? We should keep in touch."
That's how it was born.
Yeah.
You're Jewish from New Jersey too?
You were on Quantum Leap. I'm a leaper. Carrie was a leaper. That's what it was.
Well, we cannot thank you enough.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Willie.
Thanks for having me. Boys.
When we first
Garson guys tonight.
We're the Garson guys.
Our dream would be, once things are back to normal, to be able to do some sort of live show out in LA or out back in New York. And I think it's funny. We wanted to do that, and now that there's no more live events, I feel like more than ever we're fiending for being like, when we're able to do some sort of live event again, we would. Have you ever
done like a recording on one of the bus tours with those people who go on those bus tours?
No. We haven't. There's another podcast that is two hosts from that. I actually I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I used to give Sex and the City walking tours, even though I had never seen the show. I just I just got offered like a gig and I took it, and it'd be like midway through the tour, people would be like, "It seems like you haven't seen the show." And I'm like, "I haven't." And they're like, "Oh my," and then the girls would get so into like showing me around. I'd be like, "All right, here's where we're going next."
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, my mother, who was like a serial liar, used to work for the Big Apples. The Big Apples is in the mayor's office in New York. Uh-huh. And if you're visiting New York, you can call the mayor's office and the Big Apples and say, "I want a tour of whatever, financial district, Little Italy, whatever." And they have volunteers who know all about that area. And they meet you for lunch, and then they take you on a tour. And I always like imagine, because my mother lied about everything, so I can almost imagine like her tours would be like, "Oh yeah, this is where George Washington lost his tooth," like, whatever. I mean, like I'm sure she just made up crap all the time.
This is the first diner that Alexander Hamilton ever worked at.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you. We are so incredibly grateful for you spending the night with us. We thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's early here in Los Angeles, so it was nothing. This is part of my work day.
That's great.
Well, please, when your book is ready, we would love to.
Does this mean I have to finish it now?
I think
so. You said it out loud?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, we got to have it for the book club. Yeah,
I'm getting back into it tomorrow.
Great.
Perfect.
Great. All right. Send us pages.
Awesome.
All right,
Thank you so
nice
much.
to meet you.
Thank you, Willie.
Nice meeting you as well.
Thank you so much, Willie. We'll see you.
Bye now.
That was amazing.
That was incredible.
How are you feeling, Jon?
He is just a ray of sunshine. That was like, so his stories just had me completely enraptured. Like I was just like, he's so magical. That was so fun.
You know what I was thinking? First of all, it's funny to imagine that maybe right now he's like texting Sarah Jessica Parker and just being like, "Hey, I just did that thing that you did with those dudes."
You know what would be amazing if you imagine this like a TV show, and he kind of like wistfully like logs off Zoom, and then he just kind of goes, "Those guys," and then he reaches in his desk and he opens this drawer, and then he reaches in and he just pulls out a Skynet pager, and then he just texts her, and then it cuts to her, and she's like, "Oh wow, I know the Bradshaw boys."
Oh
dude,
man,
she's got it in some like super hidden compartment somewhere in her house, and it's just like the Skynet pager's rigging.
It's like a bat phone.
What was crazy is like while we were talking, we had beforehand, I had his IMDb, his filmography up, and it's just like name a movie, like name any movie or TV show, and he has been in it. It's like it's actually legit bonkers.
I was so embarrassed. I said sitcoms. I was just scrolling through. I wanted to bring up Being John Malkovich and Groundhog's Day because those are two of my favorite films. Yeah, and I was blown. It was like Mad About You, Cheers.
Well, it's
Friends.
crazy because
like I felt like embarrassed when he was like more than sitcoms because I knew that, but it's like also for the era of sitcoms, like he'd be on a list of like most sitcoms Not just most sitcoms, but like the big ones, like the Super Bowl of every sitcom, you know?
Well, you're not wrong. Yeah, you're not wrong in the sense that he has been on every sitcom, and then he's also been on tons of TV dramas and in lots of movies. He's been in a million things.
It's just wild. It's like, and also his book is just such a great idea. Like, I would definitely read that book.
I also, one thing that I thought when, you know, because now, I mean, we've done interviews with Candace, Kristen, and Willie and Ben, first name for all of them. And we've done it with SJP too. But SJP, since it was the quarantine episode, and then the other thing was like a quick rush, that it seems like everyone they're so much wittier and funnier and like snappier than, because they're not acting. It's like, oh, you're high wit, intelligence, and very funny to talk with. And it made me, it was just cool to be able to, I don't know, just shoot the shit with someone who was like, oh yeah, you're fucking hilarious.
Well, and you also realize how much he knows about when he was talking about how White Collar was shot and Sex and the City was shot, and you realize like someone who's been on that many film sets understands like the craft of what he's making. He's just like an incredibly sharp, witty, quick, funny, but also warm, caring, great individual.
Dude, imagine how much information towards how a film set works that dude has.
Yeah,
he's
like crazy.
He's like Regis Philbin on who's like logged the most hours on TV. He's probably been on set like for the past 35 years.
It's unbelievable.
Also, I was gonna say when he was talking about being on set, for those of you, in case you didn't, it was hard to understand. He was saying that Sex and the City was shot from above because
going down,
and White Collar shot more from down. I didn't want to interrupt him because it was early on. But
like the angles thing when he was talking about.
But if it was later, you would have wanted to interrupt him?
If it was later, you'd have been like, hey man, we're close now. I'm going to call you out on this. Okay. I'm going to interrupt you.
It's difficult for anyone to understand what it's like to just be like, these people are hanging out and, you know, they're not getting paid. Like they're done and they don't know what they're getting into. And are you guys stressed? I'm always like stressed. I'm like, is the internet working? Is it recording? And are we going to embarrass ourselves? You know,
the only time I'm really stressed is like once we get in there. Yeah, it's the beginning. Like it's when we're trying to set up, like we didn't record this obviously because we're starting, but like we're trying to set up the tech with people and you're getting, you know, you're walking through something and like this is the whole thing of quarantine and COVID, where this is what like celebrities and actors like him are usually on a film set with a crew, and now they have been tasked with like going, like you watch the Today Show, it's like Leslie Odom Jr. in his house with like AirPods in and his Zoom freezes. And like, so the only time I'm stressed is like when we were in the beginning, I was like, do you have other headphones you can use? Hang on.
Cory's responsible for having to be like, he's like, yeah, I have headphones, and Cory's like, can you get different ones? I was just sitting there, I'm like, I'm so fucking glad I didn't have that job. But he was so nice about it. I think you're right, Cory. Like people are more used to that, and I feel like it's been good that we've adapted to our system to get more guests on, because then we haven't had to be like, wait another year to go to LA. Like we've been able to get these people on partially because this has been less scary. So but everybody, the rumors are true. Willie Garson is just so funny, so and nice, so generous with his time, and was just like a fun hang.
Thank you, Willie. And I think that one's in the books for Stanford Blatch. He's just as amazing in person as he is on the screen.
Signing off. Later taters. This has been the Blatch Boys.
The Blatch Boys. The Garson guys.
The Garson guys. Later taters.
The Bradshaw Boys stars Cory Cavin, Kevin James Doyle, and Jon Sieber. The show is produced by me, Jeremy Balon, and narrated by Katie Sieber. This podcast is part of the Seltzer Kings Network. Check out all their great podcasts at seltzerkings.com. You can find the boys on their socials at The Bradshaw Boys or on their website at thebradshawboys.com. And as always, if you see them in the street, tip your glass. Thanks for listening.
get married to Aunt Mario Cantone?
Holy shit!